Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to look at part 3 questions about mobile phones. First, you'll watch a mock interview with Finn, and after that, we'll break down the answers question by question. Let's get started.
Why are mobile phones banned in certain places?
Mobile phones are banned in certain places mainly to prevent cheating, protect privacy, or stop confidential information from being leaked. For example, during exams, students are not allowed to use phones because they could search for answers or communicate with others unfairly. At my university, invigilators are extremely strict about this and will disqualify a student if a phone rings. Another great example is at stand-up comedy shows. Some comedians ask the audience to lock their phones away so that people cannot record jokes and post them online before the official tour ends. Phones are also prohibited in some government buildings and research centers where sensitive information must remain confidential. Personally, I think these bans are reasonable because they protect fairness, creativity, and privacy in different situations.
Do you think people rely too much on their phones nowadays?
Yes, definitely. I think smartphones have become so integrated into daily life that many people struggle to function without them. For instance, most university students use their phones for navigation, online banking, communication, entertainment, and even studying. Sometimes I catch myself checking my phone automatically, even when there's no important notification. It has almost become a habit rather than a necessity. On the other hand, phones are incredibly useful tools, so some level of dependence is understandable. The real problem starts when people cannot focus on real life interactions or basic tasks without constantly looking at a screen.
Should students be allowed to use mobile phones at school?
I think mobile phones should be allowed in schools to some extent, but only if there are clear rules. On the positive side, phones can sometimes help students learn because they can quickly search for information or use educational apps. They can also be useful in emergencies when students need to contact their parents. However, phones can easily become a distraction if students start using social media, playing games, or messaging friends during class. I think this is a bigger problem among younger students because they usually have less self control. Some schools have even introduced phone bans to help students concentrate better in class. Personally, I think allowing phones in a limited and controlled way is probably the best solution.
What are the disadvantages of using mobile phones too much?
Excessive phone use can negatively affect both physical and mental health. For example, many students suffer from eye strain and poor sleep because they spend hours staring at screens late at night. I've experienced that myself during exam periods when I spend too much time online after studying. Another issue is reduced attention span. People are becoming so used to short videos and instant entertainment that they struggle to concentrate for long periods. Social relationships can also suffer because some people pay more attention to their phones than to the people sitting next to them. In extreme cases, overusing smartphones can even lead to anxiety or addiction like behavior.
In what situations should people turn off their phones?
I think people should turn off or silence their phones whenever they are in situations that require full attention or respect. For example, during lectures, business meetings, or job interviews, phone interruptions can leave a very negative impression. Funerals and religious ceremonies are also situations where using a phone would be inappropriate. Personally, I also believe people should avoid using phones while having serious face to face conversations because it can seem disrespectful. Another important situation is while driving. Even a few seconds of distraction can cause accidents. In general, turning off a phone shows consideration for both safety and the people around us.
How have smartphones changed the way people communicate?
Smartphones have completely transformed communication by making it instant and extremely convenient. Nowadays, people can contact friends or family members from anywhere in the world within seconds through messaging apps or video calls. As an international student at university, I really appreciate being able to stay connected with relatives without spending much money. However, I think communication has also become less personal in some ways. Many people prefer texting instead of having deeper, face to face conversations. Emojis and short messages sometimes replace genuine emotional expression. Even so, I believe smartphones have generally improved communication because they allow people to maintain relationships more easily, despite busy schedules and long distances.
Do you think limiting phone use can improve concentration?
Yes, I strongly believe it can. Whenever I put my phone away while studying, I notice that I can focus much better and complete tasks more quickly. Phones constantly interrupt people through notifications, messages, and social media updates, so it's difficult for the brain to stay focused. I've even started using Do Not Disturb mode during exams because it reduces distractions significantly. In my opinion, many students underestimate how much time they lose simply checking their phones repeatedly. Of course, self-discipline is still important, but reducing screen time definitely helps people concentrate more effectively. Sometimes even taking short breaks from technology can improve productivity and mental clarity.
Would it be difficult for people to live without smartphones today?
Yes, I think it would be extremely difficult for most people. Smartphones are no longer just communication devices. They are also used for transportation, banking, shopping, education, and entertainment. At university, I rely on my phone every day to check schedules, submit assignments, and contact classmates. Without it, managing daily life would become much less convenient. That being said, I think living without smartphones might also have some positive effects because people could become more socially connected in real life. They might spend more time interacting face to face instead of online. Still, considering how dependent modern society has become on technology, adapting to life without smartphones would be a major challenge for most people.
All right, that's the end of the interview. Now let's go through each answer and break down the main ideas and examples you can use in your own speaking test. Question 1. Why are mobile phones banned in certain places? When answering this question, you can talk about fairness, privacy, and security. A strong example is exams because students could use phones to cheat or communicate with others unfairly. You can also mention strict university rules. For example, some invigilators will immediately disqualify a student if a phone rings during an exam. Another realistic example is stand-up comedy shows where comedians ban phones to stop people from recording jokes and posting them online before the tour ends. You can also include places like research centres or government buildings, where confidential information must remain private. You should finish by saying whether you think these bans are reasonable or not. Question 2. Do you think people rely too much on their phones nowadays? For this question, you can explain how smartphones are connected to almost every part of modern life. You can mention things like navigation, online banking, communication, entertainment, and studying. A natural detail is talking about checking your phone automatically, even when there are no notifications. That makes the answer sound realistic and relatable. You can also say that phones are useful tools, so some dependence is understandable. Then transition into the negative side by explaining that people sometimes struggle to focus on conversations or daily tasks without looking at a screen. Question 3. Should students be allowed to use mobile phones at school? For this question, you can discuss both the advantages and disadvantages of allowing phones in schools. On the positive side, phones can support learning because students can quickly search for information or use educational apps during lessons. They can also be useful in emergencies if students need to contact their parents. However, phones can easily become a distraction when students start using social media, playing games, or messaging friends during class. This is often a bigger issue among younger students because they usually have less self-control. Some schools have even introduced phone bans to help students concentrate better. You can finish by saying that allowing phones in a limited and controlled way is probably the best solution. Question 4. What are the disadvantages of using mobile phones too much? You can talk about both physical and mental effects of excessive phone use. One common problem is eye strain and poor sleep, because many people spend hours looking at screens late at night. You can also include a personal example, such as staying on your phone too long during exam periods. Another major issue is reduced attention span. Many people become used to short videos and instant entertainment, so they find it difficult to concentrate for long periods. Social relationships can also suffer because some people pay more attention to their phones than to the people around them. In more serious situations, excessive phone use can even lead to anxiety or addictive behaviour. Question 5. In what situations should people turn off their phones? You can focus on situations where using a phone seems distracting, disrespectful, or unsafe. You can mention lectures, business meetings, and job interviews because phone interruptions can create a very negative impression. Funerals and religious ceremonies are also good examples, since using a phone there may appear disrespectful to others. Another strong point is serious face-to-face conversations. Constantly checking a phone can make the other person feel ignored. You can also include driving because even a short distraction can cause accidents. You can finish by saying that turning off a phone shows respect and consideration for the people around us. Question 6. How have smartphones changed the way people communicate? You can begin this answer by explaining how smartphones make communication fast and convenient. People can contact friends and family instantly through messaging apps or video calls, even if they live in different countries. International students, for example, often rely on smartphones to stay connected with relatives cheaply and easily. Then you can discuss the negative side. Communication may feel less personal because people prefer texting instead of speaking face-to-face. Some people also rely too much on emojis or short messages instead of expressing emotions directly. You can finish by saying smartphones still improve communication overall because they help people maintain relationships across long distances. Question 7. Do you think limiting phone use can improve concentration? For this question, you can explain how phones constantly interrupt concentration through notifications, messages, and social media updates. A realistic example is putting your phone away while studying and noticing that you finish tasks faster and focus more effectively. You can also mention using Do Not Disturb mode during study sessions or exams to reduce distractions. Another important point is that many people waste more time than they realise by repeatedly checking their phones throughout the day. You can end by saying that reducing screen time often improves productivity and mental clarity. Finally, would it be difficult for people to live without smartphones today? A strong answer here explains how smartphones are connected to everyday activities. You can mention transportation, banking, shopping, education, and communication. University students, for example, often use phones to check schedules, submit assignments, and contact classmates. Without smartphones, daily life would become much less convenient. However, you can also mention one possible positive effect, which is that people might spend more time interacting face-to-face instead of online. You can end by saying modern society has become highly dependent on technology, so adapting to life without smartphones would be very difficult for most people. Alright, that's all for today's lesson. Try answering these questions yourself and practice developing your ideas naturally with clear examples and explanations. If you'd like more practice like this, you can become a member for extra lessons. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next one.